I provided those ancient laborers with nothing but the basics, just meager portions of rice and simple pickled greens. I forced them through 8-hour shifts before allowing any rest. Braised pork was a luxury reserved strictly for the weekends. I braced for a total uprising during the pandemic. Yet from day one, those workers couldn't keep still for a second. They whispered in fear, "Is this our final feast?" By day 3, the entire camp was spiraling into a massive panic. They trembled, wondering, "Is our Lord training us to be a suicide squad?" By the 7th day, the entire workforce stood before me. They asked with chilling resolve, "My Lord, who must we kill?" I just watched them as they roared, "Thank you. We will slay anyone for you. Our lives belong to you alone." Their devotion was absolute. A month later, without a single word from me, the workers began to dress me themselves. They presented a golden tunic embroidered with majestic dragons. "Lord, the chill is coming. Please wear this extra layer." As they draped the heavy fabric over me, I stared at the imperial robe in my hands. "Good grief," I muttered. "You people have truly pushed me into a corner now. My heart remains loyal to this nation. I've never wavered. I wouldn't dream of harboring any secret treasonous motives. 2.5 years ago, I transmigrated to this ancient border county. I even awakened the ultimate supply system imaginable. With the system's divine blessing, I believed I would reach the peak of existence in no time at all. But surprisingly, the system initially only granted me infinite supplies of two things: pickled vegetables and Yunnan biomedicine. It reminded me of a viral post I once read. Could ancient laborers revolt if they were only fed porridge and pickles? Most netizens said no way. One user, however, provided a response that was absolutely genius. He claimed as long as their bellies were full, if that porridge was thick and the greens had a hint of sesame oil, they wouldn't just endure the labor, they'd build the Great Wall all the way to Europe without uttering a single complaint. Lost in my thoughts, I walked until my servant Yang Shio pointed toward the horizon. He gestured toward a crumbling, ruined city. "Young Master Namo Pine County is just up ahead," he said. I gazed down the path leading straight into the heart of the desolate wasteland. Staring at those decaying walls, I couldn't help but scowl. This was going to be a disaster. Ruling this place wouldn't be easy. Suddenly, a woman with a scarred face and missing fingers knelt before my feet. She began to plead, "My lord, please have mercy. I beg of you, give us something to eat." Following her desperate lead, the others began to approach, surrounding my carriage one by one. They blocked my path, dropping to the dirt, just to beg for a single bite. I reached for the carriage. They were broken, emaciated shadows of humans. Suddenly, a sharp voice cut through the desperate crowd. "Step back! Don't block the noble lord's path." A man emerged from the beggars, a notched dagger hanging from his hip. He grabbed my attention instantly. "Are you the leader of these people?" I asked, feeling curious. "What is your name?" The man let out a hollow, self-deprecating laugh. "Me a leader? Hardly. These people just fear the dull blade I carry. Noble lord, if you have any scraps for the helpless." I reached into my carriage and hauled out 2 heavy sacks of rice. I stepped toward the man with the dagger. I noticed that despite their shattered bodies and suffering, they still maintained a surprising sense of order. "It is thanks to your leadership. Take these 2 sacks of food and distribute them among your people." He didn't expect me to surrender such precious cargo. I placed the sacks directly into his trembling hands. This show of respect stunned him. Clutching the supplies, he turned back toward the expectant crowd. As he carried the gift, the air erupted with cries of thanks and overwhelming gratitude from the people. The man felt the weight, at least 20 kilos. It was enough to make a decent porridge for 2 full days. The man with the dagger passed the sacks forward, bringing the food to the very front of the line. He handed it to the woman who first stopped my carriage, telling her to share it with everyone present. But the moment she peeked inside, she froze. "Big brother Wu, this is high-quality white rice." Wu thought his ears were playing tricks on him. The woman pulled him closer, holding the sack wide open. The man with the blade stared at the contents. He stood paralyzed by the sight of those pristine white grains. Overwhelmed, Wu reached out to touch them, just to be certain, but then he noticed his own hands blackened with filth. He recoiled instantly, terrified that his touch might shatter such untainted beauty. Staring in shock, he whispered, "My lord, is this grain truly for us?" I nodded firmly before shouting for all to hear. "I am Zogi, the newly appointed magistrate of this county. Tomorrow at dawn, the imperial granaries will open to feed every single victim of this tragedy." My words triggered an explosion of joy as the crowd roared, "Long live the magistrate!" I signaled for silence. Once the echoes faded, I turned to the man holding the blade. "Your name is Wu, correct? What is your full name? Will you guide me to the city center?" He beamed with pure excitement. "This lowly servant is Wu, the sixth son of my house." I nodded. "Then Wu it is. Lead the way, Wu. Take us to the heart of the city." But as we marched, my spirit grew heavy. The streets were a graveyard of shattered homes. These people weren't physically broken yet. They looked like walking ghosts. Unlike the battered refugees outside, their eyes were empty pits, completely drained of any will to survive. Sensing the suffocating silence, Wu began to bellow at the townspeople as he led our procession. "The Empire hasn't forsaken us. Our new magistrate has finally arrived. The granaries open tomorrow for everyone." The second those words rang out, the very air seemed to crackle. Those lifeless, hollow stares transformed. A spark of hope ignited, radiating through the desperate crowd like wildfire. A primal burning hunger for life took hold. Eventually, we reached a crumbling structure where Wu came to a halt. He screamed at the building, "Bailiff, come out! The Emperor has sent us our magistrate!" Moments later, a middle-aged man in a shredded uniform emerged from the yamen, followed by 3 weary subordinates. Stunned, the lead bailiff rushed toward Wu. "Wu, tell me, I heard you right. What did you say?" "The court sent a new leader," Wu announced, pointing directly at me. "Behold the magistrate of Pingyang County." The man's eyes locked onto mine. He collapsed to the ground, prostrating himself in the dirt. Through ragged sobs, he cried, "My lord, you're here! The heavens haven't abandoned the people of Pingyang." I quickly pulled him to his feet and began demanding a full report on the county's status. Though remote, Pingyang was a thriving hub just 6 months ago, bustling with life and trade. 5,000 people once called this home. Now I feared the survivors didn't even number 2,000. The former leaders were men of iron. They chose death over surrender, and the Xiongnu impaled their heads as a warning. Hearing the bailiff's grim tale, a wave of icy dread washed over me. He looked at me with desperate eyes. "My lord, when will the border troops and relief supplies finally arrive?" I delved into the memories of this body's former host. The truth was far more bitter than they imagined. The empire of Chun was rotting from within. Everything collapsed once the traitor General Yang seized the throne. The entire nation had spiraled into a nightmare of chaos and greed. Not a single shadow of help has appeared in 6 months. "It's obvious no one is coming," I scoffed coldly. It was time to shatter their fragile illusions and face the brutal reality. Those pathetic court officials are nothing but greedy dogs. Not a single grain or soldier is coming to save you. Why do these people still cling to such a hopeless, transparent lie? I kept my voice low as I processed this dark truth hidden from the desperate crowd. But my words carried through the silence. In an instant, the faces of everyone nearby collapsed into sheer despair. Their hope withered, and I knew it was time. I roared, "Izogi cannot bear to witness such suffering. Fortunately, I have my own resources. The supplies I personally bought will arrive in Pingyang tonight. Official distribution begins tomorrow at high noon." The retreating crowd surged back toward me. However, mark my words, no one eats for free here. Pingyang's walls are in shambles, leaving us defenseless against even the lowliest looters and bandits. At the hour of the dragon tomorrow we rebuild, we will reinforce our defenses, starting with the south wall. Man or woman, young or old, healthy or sick, everyone has a part to play. Contribute your strength to the wall and you earn your rice. By noon, we all feast together. When I proposed the plan to fortify our crumbling walls, silence filled the room. Not a single soul dared to object. Deep down, they were desperate for safety, yet one burning question remained. Where would the food come from? Doubt clouded their eyes like a thick fog. They simply didn't believe the supplies would ever arrive on time. I turned to my subordinate and ordered, "Bail of Qian, conduct a full census of every survivor in this county immediately. Group them by age and gender. I want to know who can read or possesses any special talents. Every list must be perfectly organized. With the orders set, I led Kyung and the others back to the office. Once inside, I asked, "Bale of Cheon, where is our granary?" Chin-young froze his face, turning pale with panic. "My lord, surely you don't mean to give the granary's stores to the victims," he stammered in a rush. "Those damn bandits plundered everything 6 months ago. There isn't a single grain left in the entire warehouse." I shook my head at his fear. "Weren't you listening earlier? The supplies I arranged will be here by nightfall. I just need a place to secure them." He led me to an empty warehouse and I began issuing commands. "Bale of Qian, lock these doors tight. When the time comes, hand the keys over to Yang Shio. The delivery team will find him. Also, from this moment on, Yang Shio is my official county advisor." With the logistics handled, Chin Yang took me out to inspect the state of the riverbanks. We spent the afternoon scouring the Pingong province. Finally, I understood the true layout of this desolate land. Originally, I planned to lead the poor against greedy landlords and redistribute the territory. But as I looked around, I realized there wasn't a single wealthy family left in this entire county. Anyone with a coin to their name had fled this war-torn wasteland long ago, leaving only the starving behind. Finally, I understood why the system was doing this. The reality of the situation was far worse than imagined. Without these rations, being the magistrate here would be literal hell mode. The next morning, we headed to the gate. But as I arrived, my heart sank. Before me stood a group of cripples led by old Lu. Only 20 able-bodied men stood before me. 20 men to rebuild an entire fortress wall? The sight was pathetic and fury surged through my veins. I couldn't help but curse under my breath. Don't they get it? This wall protects them. Do they think they're doing me some kind of favor? When the bandits return, do they think those monsters will only be hunting for my head? Believe Chin Yong saw the rage boiling in my eyes and rushed over to try and calm my spirit. "My lord, please, these people have starved for so long they have no strength or will left to move. They haven't seen the food with their own eyes yet, so they'd rather stay home to save energy. To them, avoiding the pain of hunger is better than wasting their last breath working on a wall." A wave of regret hit me like a physical blow. I should have handed out the rations last night. I should have filled their bellies with rice before asking them to lift a single heavy stone. But summoning food from the system would have been impossible to explain. I couldn't risk making it public yet. I mocked my own stupidity. So much for being a brilliant 21st century university graduate. Chin Young's voice suddenly snapped me back to reality. "My lord, what is our next move?" I cleared my throat and faced the crowd. "Bale of Qian, organize these people into teams of 10 immediately. Yang Shio record every name. At noon, we will cook exactly enough for those who are registered." Chin Young's management skills were sharp. Before long, 20 organized teams were standing ready for duty. But they were mere shadows of men. Barely 10% were in any condition to actually perform labor. Their efficiency during the first morning was non-existent. As the sun hit its peak, I gave the signal. "Bring the rice and radishes and tell the cooks to make today's congee extra thick for everyone." The locals gathered at the wall with hollow stomachs and even hollower hope waiting for a miracle. They whispered among themselves, wondering if the promise of a feast was just another cruel lie. Was the magistrate a savior or just playing them for fools? My guards ensured no outsiders stole a meal. Every man lined up in his assigned group, their hungry eyes glued to the giant iron pots. When the lids finally came off, the intoxicating scent of fresh rice filled the air like a dream. The workers in the front row caught a whiff of that intoxicating aroma and froze in their tracks. Their mouths watered at the sight of the rice, but the massive wooden barrel I revealed truly stole their breath away. It was brimming with a rich reddish stew that glistened with fat, looking like an absolute feast for the gods. I snapped the registry open and commanded the crowd, "Listen up. Step forward by team to receive your rations. If your name isn't on this list, don't even try it. I won't tolerate parasites mooching off our hard work." Gula's squad led the charge. He snatched his first bowl of congee, completely ignoring the scalding steam rising from it. He took a desperate, massive gulp. Instantly, Gula Olu felt the hollow chill in his gut begin to melt away. Warmth surged through his entire body. This wasn't the pathetic, watery slop the government usually served as relief food. Gula roared at the top of his lungs. Brothers, look at this! The magistrate is giving us premium rice. This is the elite grain that only the wealthy and nobles ever eat. Soon every worker on the wall had their congee and radishes. But as they ate, a strange atmosphere took hold. Without realizing it, tears began to fall. Some of the men even started to sob openly into their bowls. They were weeping simply because they had never tasted anything this delicious. I watched from the shade, eating my own meal. Honestly, the sound of their constant wailing was starting to get on my last nerve. I stood up and shouted, "If you're still hungry, go get seconds. Stop crying before people think I'm starving you." The workers froze the instant I spoke. Silence fell as they stared at me in a state of total shock. They couldn't process the words. Seconds, I was actually allowing them to go back for more of this luxury. They traded stunned glances, wondering if they were trapped in some kind of beautiful, impossible dream. Even one bowl of this high-quality congee was a miracle, yet their magistrate was offering them an endless feast. A hungry worker approached me, bowing low with trembling hands. "My lord, is it true? Can I really have another bowl?" I gave a short stoic nod and told him to help himself to as much as he wanted. Realizing this wasn't a trick, the men who had finished their servings scrambled toward the pots like their lives depended on it. They swarmed for a second, helping devouring the food, as if it were the last meal they would ever see. I stood tall, my voice echoing with authority. "Hear me. Anyone who works for me will never go hungry again. But mark my words, if you fight or cause trouble, everyone starves. No second chances." I needed to plant a seed in their hearts, the foundation of absolute obedience and ironclad discipline. Pingyang County is a crossroads for 5 kingdoms. Fixing walls won't be enough to survive the storm that's coming. Once the repairs are finished, I must turn these locals into a lethal, highly trained force of elite soldiers. I need men who can kill to protect this land. I envisioned a legendary army rising under my banner. My daydream was interrupted when Agent Chinyong arrived, dragging a suspicious-looking man by his collar. He threw him at my feet. "Agent Xian," I muttered, looking at the man. "What sin has this creature committed?" Xinyong bowed deeply. "My lord, I caught this lazy leech. This young man goes by the name of Ba. He skipped work on the wall this morning and spent his time loitering around the city streets instead. He tried to sneak into the food line to steal a meal. Give us justice, my lord." I glared at Ba. I didn't move to punish him. Instead, I calmly ordered an officer to bring 2 bowls of soup and pickles. "You're Bishung, right? You just gorged yourself." Bishung hit his knees, his voice cracking with pure desperation. "My lord, spare me, a demon possessed me. I only lied about being a worker so I could eat. I only managed 2 sips before the agent grabbed me. I know I've sinned. I know I was wrong. I'll work twice as hard today." I smirked at him. "Is my soup good, Bung?" He lay there paralyzed by terror. He didn't stop bowing as he stammered out his response. "Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, my lord." I leaned down, whispering into his ear like a chilling breeze. "Know this? My soup isn't something you can just steal." My words were soft, yet Bung froze where he knelt. He remained pressed against the dirt, trembling in absolute panic. "Please spare my life," I cut him off. "The wall needs fixing, and I need useful people like you. See those 2 bowls? One is for you now. The other is for you to carry while you recruit for me." Bishung looked completely stunned, his jaw dropping in disbelief. "My lord, you mean I'm supposed to help?" "Spread the word. Anyone who helps repair the wall will be rewarded with hot soup and pickles." I nodded, a calm smile confirming my decree. "Will you truly not punish me, my lord?" he whispered, his voice trembling with a mix of disbelief and relief. I let out a cold snort. "If I find the worker count hasn't increased by tomorrow morning, it will mean you've failed me. In that moment, your previous crimes and this failure will be judged together. We'll see if you survive the fallout." Bishung instantly prostrated himself, desperate to show his profound gratitude. "I'll give my soul for you, my lord. I promise you'll love the results. I'll bring back a sea of workers." I gave a satisfied nod. By sunrise the next day, I stood once again at the city's southern gate. The crowd had doubled overnight. Over 400 people. Bang approached with his wife, eager to claim his due credit. He knelt before me and spoke with pride. My lord, I have successfully fulfilled my mission. I scoured the city, spreading news of your generosity. That's why so many have flocked to your table today. This humble servant even brought his wife, so she may lend her strength to your lordship's noble cause. Please accept our service. This was no simple repair. We were thickening and raising the very foundations of the city. Yesterday's 200 workers were mostly frail and crippled, barely making a dent in such a massive project. They were starving their broken bodies, lacking even a shred of strength to move heavy stone. Progress was agonizingly slow, but today a tide of new workers, men and women alike, had finally arrived. I would have recruited local strays if they could haul rocks. I gave Bang and his wife a silent nod. Gender matters not, I declared. As long as you help rebuild these walls, you shall be treated with dignity. I turned to Tony Young with a new command. The crowd is massive. Set up more pots and prepare more rice soup. As he hurried off, Chin Yong approached me, his face clouded with deep hesitation and visible doubt. My lord, must we use precious white rice again? I countered with a smirk. Why are you not hungry? The official shook his head frantically. No, it's just giving away such delicious soup feels like a total waste. I understood his logic. Chin Yong was a practical man who focused strictly on cold, hard numbers. He believed switching to coarse grains would keep the Yamen warehouse stocked for much longer. He hated seeing our resources vanish so quickly, but I was glad he finally asked that question. This was the perfect chance to win the people's hearts. I raised my voice with absolute conviction. Your lives are just as precious as any prince or noble. There is no difference in our blood. By what right do they feast alone? Are kings, generals, and ministers born to their titles by fate? That single defiant question shook Chin Yong to his very core, shattering his entire worldview. Never believe your lives are worth less. To me, a single soul outweighs the heavens themselves. I had challenged the divine right of rulers and declared their humble lives worth more than the stars. The official stood frozen, completely overwhelmed by my legendary vision of human worth and dignity. Chin Yong thought, Lord Zhao loves us, like his own children. I must serve him with my entire soul. A week flew by in a flash as news of the delicious rice soup spread like wildfire. Men, women, young and old, everyone heard that working for me meant a belly full of white rice. Everything was falling into my favor. Every capable person in the district swarmed the construction site. I didn't turn away a single suffering soul. They all arrived ready to work with everything they had. I took the elderly and weak under my wing, assigning them to the logistics kitchens to feed the masses. Even the small children helped gather supplies. But my generosity didn't stop at just filling their stomachs. I ensured every worker was paid a fair wage. Every 10 days they received pay and bags of rice. Seeing those grains of pure white brought peace to my heart more than anything else could. All of Pingyang was finally filled with gratitude. The entire city labored together with legendary fervor. They worked with an enthusiasm I had never seen. The days blurred together before I even realized it. I had been in this district for half a year. Through the unanimous effort of every citizen, after 6 grueling months of labor, the 4 great walls were finally completed today. The east, west, south, and north were now guarded by massive, brand-new reinforced gates. Gazing up at that massive 10-meter-thick stone monolith, I finally felt a true spark of security flicker within my heart. Looking back, luck has been on our side. The people of Pingyang have enjoyed 6 months of absolute uninterrupted peace. I owe them everything for their tireless efforts. Surprisingly, those foreign tribes didn't even try to harass us during construction. Yet I knew the bitter truth. Even the mightiest defense is destined to be breached by a determined foe one day. Right now, these walls could likely repel a siege from 20,000 elite warriors without breaking a single sweat. But the Xiongnu to the north and the Khitan to the east, they command legendary armies of 1 million archers. Even if those numbers are just terrifying myths, I still had to face the cold, hard reality of our situation. 200,000 riders would easily crush us. I sighed deeply, realizing Pingyang's population is still far too small to survive. I needed to bolster our numbers immediately. With the wall finished, many villagers finally felt they had a secure future. They have enough food for now, But the days of free handouts are officially over in my city. I refuse to give away rations for nothing anymore. Doing that only breeds a colony of lazy, entitled parasites. Their future prosperity and a good life depend entirely on them fighting for it with their own two hands. That afternoon, I summoned every soul in the city to gather before me for a life-changing announcement. Elders and countrymen, we celebrate our wall today. However, we cannot afford to grow complacent while enemies lurk in the shadows. To our frozen north, the Xiongnu are waiting for a moment of weakness. The Chang watch from the west, while the Khitan and other foreign tribes are stalking us from the east. Our state has armies at the pass, but our local forces here are pathetic. We don't even have 10 crossbows ready. We don't have 30 spears to our name, and we don't even possess one full set of battle armor. Therefore, I've decided to recruit a militia starting today to form the legendary Pingyang County Guard. Join the Guard and you'll get 3 meals of white rice daily, plus 200 yen and pickled radishes every month. The second the news left my lips, the massive crowd beneath the platform erupted into a frenzy of pure excitement. They couldn't believe their ears. Was the magistrate actually serious about offering such an incredible deal to commoners? 3 meals of solid rice every day. That news sent every inhabitant into a state of shocked, frantic joy. One by one, men began charging forward, desperate to enlist their names in the new army of Pingyang. A third of the population signed up instantly, including nearly every able-bodied man capable of working in the county. I never imagined that offering a little rice and some radishes would attract such a massive, unstoppable wave of recruits. 2 months later, I had a standing regular army and a solid reserve force of over 200 men. It was time for the next phase. I had the muscle now I needed to find a way to make money. I was down to 17 taels of silver, but my supply of rice and radishes was practically infinite. I wasn't worried about profit at all. I would take our rice to nearby counties and trade it for silver. Naturally, I entrusted this vital task to my most reliable right-hand man, Yang Xiao, to lead the expedition. Yang Xiao received his orders to lead a caravan of horses and wagons toward the largest neighboring county nearby. The objective was simple: trade our surplus supplies for mountains of cold, hard gold and silver. Days later, those 10 wagons returned from Bingyang, but their cargo had been transformed into something far more precious. They returned with 3,000 taels of gleaming silver ingots. We had finally secured a total fortune for our city. However, Yang Xiao also brought grim news. The entire Yangha region was currently falling into a state of total despair. They were suffering from a brutal food shortage. It hadn't rained in all of Yangha for over 6 months now. The scorching heat cracked the fields, cutting local food production by more than half throughout the entire surrounding county. Yang Xiao reported every chilling detail of the crisis he witnessed in the city with grim, vivid precision. My lord, food prices changed every single hour. The grain merchants were hiking prices 3 or 4 times a day. Those greedy vultures clearly have no intention of letting the common people survive this famine for the sake of profit. I looked at him with ice in my eyes. Yang Xiao, tell me you didn't join those monsters in price gouging. Yang Xiao knew I had a merciful heart. He knew I'd never allow him to side with such dishonest, cruel merchants. He immediately fell to his knees, desperate to explain his actions and prove his loyalty to my cause. My lord, I would never dream of damaging your honor or your karmic virtue like that. The grain wagons rolled in and merchants snatched everything instantly. I turned to Yang Xiao, masking my satisfaction with a flare of faux rage. Yang Xiao, you fool! You let a golden chance slip right through your fingers. We should have bled them dry and driven those prices to the heavens. My words hit him like a cold blade. Was his master losing his soul? I used to be a man of the people, a shield against suffering. What had transformed me into this monster? He stood paralyzed, unable to believe I'd side with those greedy snakes. Watching the doubt cloud Yang Xiao's eyes, I let out a silent sigh. Tell me, Yang Xiao, what is the one thing this county lacks most right now? He paused, searching for the answer. Gold? I shook my head. Blades and armor, then, he ventured. Again I signaled a no. My lord, my wit is too dull, he sighed. Please enlighten this humble servant. It's souls, I declared. brilliant minds and strong backs. Gold is just surface glitter. We can pluck that from the dirt later. But we are starving for flesh and blood to build our future. Yet the confusion on his face didn't budge. But Master, how does helping those crooks fix a manpower crisis? Why inflate the price of our very lifeblood? Use your head, Yang Shio. Think 3 steps ahead. Imagine grain costs a king's ransom in every neighboring land, while here in Pingyang it remains dirt cheap. Then word leaks out. When the desperate masses discover our secret bounty, what do you think they'll do? The truth struck him like a thunderbolt. He saw the grand design. If we conspired with those greedy city merchants, they'd push prices so high the common folk would be crushed by the weight of their own hunger. Then, like a whispered prayer, the rumors would drift across the borders. Stories of a land where grain flows like water. Desperation is a powerful motivator. Those starving souls will come sprinting straight to our gates. Recognition flared in his eyes. A masterstroke. Truly a god-tier play. My lord plans to save them all while growing our own strength. Whole clans will flee their homes to seek refuge under your banner. They'll root themselves in Pingyang soil. Our labor shortage dead and buried overnight. A total victory. With the path clear, Yang Shio went hunting for a silver-tongued rogue to light the fuse. He found his man Ba. The same slippery kid we'd caught sneaking into the work crews just for a scrap of food. That boy was born to scheme. He was the perfect weapon to go out and set the market ablaze with lies. But I wasn't done. I reached into my system and unleashed a tidal wave of unlimited potatoes upon the city. I began a massive distribution, putting food directly into the hands of every citizen. When they realized these seeds yielded 3,000 kilos per mu, the people were paralyzed with shock. They didn't doubt me for a heartbeat. By now, their loyalty to their great magistrate was carved in stone. Next, I dropped the ultimate bait. A recruitment policy that turned every citizen into a headhunter. Bring a sturdy worker to settle in Pingyang, and you're not just a neighbor, you're a hero. Every new soul would bag 100 kilos of rice just for showing up. And the person who brought them 10 kilos of rice. But if the newcomer was a master mason or blacksmith, a skilled craftsman would walk away with 200 kilos of prime rice as a bonus. Their recruiter's reward tripled to 30 kilos. And if they brought an educated scholar who could read and write, that newcomer earned 300 kilos of rice while the recruiter scored a massive 50-kilo jackpot. In Pingyang, you could literally get rich just by bringing your friends to dinner. At first, the letters sent home were dismissed as drunken dreams. The tales of our bounty sounded too good to be true. A paradise built in just 1 year. It sounded like a cruel fairy tale to those suffering outside. To them, Pingyang was being described as a literal heaven on earth. It was suspicious as hell. But as their local grain prices touched the stars, the same letters kept pouring in. In the starving streets of the neighboring territories, a dangerous, beautiful thought began to sprout. What if we just go see for ourselves? That single seed of hope set their hearts on fire, spreading like a wildfire through the slums. More messages arrived, painting pictures of life under my rule. Tales of safety plenty and a lord who actually cared. They claimed we lived in absolute luxury with bellies full and spirits soaring. The Great Migration had begun. Tales of pearly white rice and savory pickles spread like wildfire. Relatives pleaded with them to move to Pingyang County so they could live like literal gods. Luckily, this wasn't the digital age yet. Otherwise, people in those 2 cities would have completely lost their minds. Most would have just assumed it was some sketchy internet scam. From their perspective, the lifestyle described in those letters was a total impossibility. They figured only the emperor lived that well. Meanwhile, in Pingyangchang and Pingyangxian, grain prices were skyrocketing out of control. A single kilo of raw grain cost a literal fortune in silver. Buying food was becoming a desperate, unreachable dream. The locals were at their breaking point. Then whispers reached them about my territory having mountains of cheap, abundant grain. That's when those letters from their relatives finally started making sense. One by one, a massive migration toward my county began. Meanwhile, Manager Bang sat at the Zhou family grain shop, chilling and snacking while waiting for the next convoy. Usually the shipment arrived by noon at the latest. But now the sun was already dipping below the horizon with no sign of them. There wasn't a single trace of the grain wagons on the road. Getting restless, Bang's mind started racing. Had a disaster struck? Suddenly, a familiar, terrified face crashed into the shop. The man was covered in filth and gasping for air. He collapsed in front of Bang and choked out, "Manager Bang! Our grain! It's all been hijacked!" Bang froze. What stolen who would be gutsy enough to do this? How dare they touch our great lord's property? Bang grabbed the man, shaking him for every single detail. They said they're from the Black Wind Fortress. Dozens of our guards were tied up and dragged into the mountains. The bandits even left a demand. They want a ransom of 100 kilos of grain for every single person captured. With a crisis this massive, Bang knew he couldn't handle the situation alone. Besides, the warehouse he managed back in Pyongyang was practically bone dry. He didn't have enough supplies to pay off the Black Wind Fortress. He immediately prepped a messenger pigeon. He had to get this news to the main office in Pyongyang County. Meanwhile, deep inside the Black Wind Fortress, a massive throne sat draped in a thick bearskin. A rugged beast of a man lounged on the seat. This was the fortress leader, Xia Baowing. Manager Yi stood in the hall with a serpent-like grin discussing the raid on the Zoji family's grain convoy. "I wonder, Chief Xia, was the operation a success?" Xia Baowing let out a thunderous, booming laugh. "It's all thanks to your intel, Manager Yi. My brothers from the Black Wind Fortress just hit the jackpot. Not only did we seize all 5 of those grain wagons, but we also bagged 10 hostages. We gave them 7 days to deliver 100 kilos of grain per man." Hearing this, Manager Yi felt a surge of pure joy. He smirked, knowing a powerful dragon can't crush a local snake. "I don't care where you came from, Bishing, or how you got that pure white rice. In this city of Pyongyang, the Ye family are the ones who call the shots." Back at the decrepit county office, I was finishing dinner. Forget that watery porridge tonight was a feast. The locals had brought me fresh wild pheasants they'd hunted deep in the mountains as a gift. The meat was lean, but that broth was incredibly rich and savory. It was so good I polished off several bowls. I was just gearing up for my nightly literacy classes. It was time for my shift to teach the townspeople how to read the new characters. Suddenly, Chief Chinyong burst in, clutching a scrap of cloth and screaming that there was a massive emergency. The moment I heard emergency, I bolted for the door. My mind raced through every possible disaster. I worried the bandits had finally decided to strike again. Or maybe the northern barbarians had launched a new invasion. "Sir, our grain! It's stolen!" Chinyong wheezed out. I froze instantly. Then my nerves finally relaxed. Thank God, it wasn't a full-scale barbarian invasion. I still had time to build my power in secret, but then my expression turned cold. I glared at Chief Chien with eyes like ice. "Tell me exactly what happened." He handed me the note. I scanned the message instantly. My face darkened as I realized the grain was completely unguarded this time. Seeing my storm cloud expression, Chief Chen looked like a punctured balloon. Pyongyang County had been pouring every soul into urban expansion lately. Our last 2 grain shipments arrived without a single hitch. Because of that success, Chief Chen grew complacent and reassigned his men to local construction. Shaking with fear, the chief confessed the truth. Fury exploded within me like a volcano. Building houses. Always building houses. Had you sent those men to the forge to craft lethal weapons, I wouldn't be this livid. But you sent them to a construction site. My gaze turned bone-chilling, and Chief Chen collapsed to his knees. He slammed into the floor, begging for mercy. "Sir, please. I was possessed by madness when I ordered those houses built." I let out a sharp, cold snort. "Do you truly think my measly carts of grain are the source of my rage? Your incompetence cost us 10 lives. The Black Wind Ridge, bandits have taken our men captive. If those 10 men return home safely, I might consider letting this grave mistake slide. But if a single hair is harmed, you'll pay with your life." Chief Chen stood there, utterly paralyzed by my words. He never imagined a lord who prized human life over cold property. To him, people were just disposable tools. Right now, a brutal drought is strangling Pyongyang and the entire Yonga region. The earth is parched and dying. A devastating famine has gripped the land this year. In these dark times, 5 carts of grain are worth a fortune. That food could fetch thousands of silver taels. In this era of chaos, a commoner's life isn't worth a single copper. To Chief Chen, those 10 city guards were nothing more than ink on a ledger. They couldn't match the value of the grain. But today, I'd show him that the rules had finally changed. It was time for a lesson he'd never forget. I value my people more than any material possession. I had to prove that life isn't a game. To me, a single human life is more precious than the heavens. Lately, refugees from Pindian and neighboring lands have been flooding into our territory every single day. Drawn by word of mouth, they've come seeking a new home and a future in Pingyong. This surge has stabilized our county. We've smashed past the 3,000 mark and now boast over 4,000 residents. Yet the current workforce still worries me. Whether for prestige or defense, our numbers are far too low. I need more souls. That's exactly why I can't just abandon those 10 missing escorts. If the Black Wind bandits took even a single person or a dog belonging to Pingyong, it would tear my heart out. Send a messenger pigeon to Bai immediately. Order him to scout Black Wind Ridge and count their forces. I barked the command at the trembling, kneeling chief. Realizing the worst of my wrath had passed, the chief finally exhaled a shaky breath. He scrambled up to execute my orders while I began to whisper a silent, desperate prayer. I prayed for their safe return. I needed every single soul taken by Black Wind Ridge to come home alive. The chief's reckless decision to prioritize housing over security gave me a much-needed wake-up call. It exposed a massive flaw in my current management, specifically within my military structure. Since arriving in Pingyong, I've been obsessed with production while completely ignoring the management of my armed forces. Luckily, I spotted this fatal error before it could spiral into a total catastrophe. Had I waited just one more day, the damage might have become impossible to repair. The very army I funded could have been weaponized against me. Imagine the irony of being slain by my own men. Once the chief retreated, I stood alone, swallowed by my own heavy thoughts. My acting advisor, San Yufu, tentatively asked about tonight's literacy class. I told him he was taking over. I wasn't going. Fearing my dark mood, he bowed quickly and scurried away without a second word. Finally alone and still simmering with anger, I summoned the system interface. Host Zoe. Funds 137,000 silver. Prestige 4,300. One reward, draw ready. Inventory status 610. Next upgrade, cost 1,000 silver taels, 3 medicinal supplies stored. Next items available: rice, potato seeds, water and cement, the essentials for survival. System activate the reward wheel. The familiar gargantuan wheel materialized in the air before my eyes. The system has organized the potential loot into 3 distinct major categories for me. The loot pool featured everything: fresh crops, farm supplies, and most importantly, legendary weapons of war. As for the agricultural gear, it was all fertilizer and chemicals. But the weapons category, that was where the real power stayed. I saw Juge repeating crossbows, Ming Wong armor, and even the devastating 8-bull crossbow. Just looking at this elite gear made my blood pump with pure adrenaline. If the repeating crossbow is an ancient submachine gun, the 8-bull version is a heavy sniper rifle. This monster is a triple bow bed crossbow firing 3mm hardwood bolts with iron fletching. On the battlefield, soldiers called them the spear sword bolts for a reason. One shot could punch straight through a city wall. It was the ultimate weapon for a siege. Once a row of these bolts hit, soldiers could use them as a ladder to scale walls. The range was insane. If you get targeted by this thing, you are basically already dead. 0 survival rate. With 12 prizes, I had a 1 in 3 shot at pulling something legendary. Whether it was the armor, the saber, or that massive crossbow, I just needed a win. Any of these would make my city guard's combat power absolutely skyrocket instantly. Victory felt so close, one weapon, and I'd storm Hoffing Mountain to wipe those bandits out tomorrow. Time to spin. The 12 prizes shuffled as the legendary draw finally began. The reward wheel started spinning wildly. I focused my mind and mentally slammed the stop button. The wheel slowed down. The repeating crossbow slid by, then the Tang saber passed too. Even the 8-bull crossbow missed. The needle slowed near the armor, but it refused to stop. My heart hammered as the needle crawled forward. It stopped, right on the line. No way. I let out a shaky laugh. A system this counts as the Ming Wong armor, right? Suddenly that cold, mechanical voice echoed. Ding, congratulations, the host has successfully drawn a prize. Herbicides. They moved to my inventory. What am I supposed to do with herbicide? I cursed. If the system had a physical body, I would teach it a lesson it would never forget. I would show it real pain. But the system just showed a zoomed-in view of the wheel. My heart sank. There it was. The needle had landed in the very next slot. It barely grazed the armor's line. The needle was pointing directly at the weed killer. You built this thing, I muttered. You could have made it stop anywhere you wanted. The armor would have made my army invincible. Instead, I am stuck with this toxic trash. I wanted to scream at the sky, what use is herbicide in a place like this? Literally anything else, even some pumpkins, would have been 100 times better than this. What is the point right now? Pyongyang is suffering through the worst drought in years. Every weed in the field is already dead and shriveled. This stuff is completely useless here. It has no purpose. Wait, the system said this herbicide is extremely toxic to humans. It is a lethal poison with no known antidote. One sip and you are dead within days. Guaranteed. Suddenly a dark spark of inspiration flashed through my mind like a lightning bolt. A truly wicked plan took shape. Hafing Camp. You chose to be my enemies. Now suffer? Blame your own stupidity for stealing from Lord Zhou. I let out a malicious low chuckle. A second later, that small laugh erupted into a full-blown, twisted, and sinister cackle. Meanwhile, in Pyongyang, Bang received my message and sent scouts to watch the Hafing stronghold. Word of my difficult situation reached the wealthy Yi family back in the city. The leaders of the clan could not help themselves. They all burst out laughing at me. The Yi butler Yagawa praised his manager. Excellent work, you handled that perfectly. The grain store manager is panicking, desperately asking about Hafing Camp. Yinrang laughed. He had to be desperate. After losing all that high-quality rice, his life was basically over. This is top-tier stock. My humble sources have been digging deep for this intel. The Zoji store's inventory won't last 5 days. Yagawa nodded coldly, as I expected. That Zoji rice is legendary. Even Lord Wang showered it with endless praise after tasting. Lord Wang. The same man who sided with that snake Jan. He's responsible for this nightmare. The conspirator who sentenced me to 50 lashes of torture, Yi Wangmen himself. Known as Lord Wang, he is my target. Now leak Hafing Camp's secrets to that manager. Let's see them struggle to escape this trap. Yagawa barked orders to his grain manager. The Yi family's lead merchant, Yi Enron, moved instantly following Yagawa's precise commands with cold efficiency. He rushed out, masking his face with a fake veil of panic and worry. He sought Bisheng to leak the Hafing intel. That stronghold was led by a disgraced centurion, a defeated soul who wandered until he claimed this very mountain peak. Using brute force, Hafing forged a band of outlaws. These remnants are now bloodthirsty bandits. They ruthlessly raid innocent villagers living on the city's outskirts. Perched near Pyongyang, the Hafing stronghold commands a force of 300 hardened killers. My previous shipments only survived by sheer luck. Assigning 20 guards was barely enough to survive. If Chief Qin sends a massive escort now, the resulting massacre could be truly catastrophic. After gaining the Hafing intel, Bisheng dismissed Yi Yin Rang with a mask of gratitude. The manager Yi Yin Rang departed, first stepping out of the Pyongyang County grain shop. Once alone, his mask shattered. He spat toward the store, his eyes burning with pure disgust. Ignorant of the truth. Bisheng sent a pigeon. I needed that intel in Pyongyang immediately. That day I seized the military. I commanded the guards and urban teams enforcing ironclad laws. Any soul who dares defy me will face the executioner's cold blade. With the code engraved in their minds, I ordered the rice sacks emptied out. We submerged the grain into wooden vats. But this was no ordinary water they were using. It was paraquat from the system, a lethal, invisible poison that is colorless and completely odorless. Back in my old life, top-tier pesticides were made this way. naturally clear and scentless liquids. Usually, warning agents are added to prevent accidental deaths, safety measures for the foolish. Dyes and foul odors warn the unsuspecting. Most think poison must look and smell deadly. But the system gifted me the pure, undetectable, and silent version. Completely pure, no additives, no warning dyes, and absolutely no chemical stench to betray me. My guards watched oblivious. They assumed I was simply prepping the grain for a long journey. They viewed the barrels as harmless water, until I forced a chicken to take a drink. The bird perished instantly. Reality set in. These barrels were filled with a terrifying lethal poison. Rumors soon flooded the city about my rice shipment destined for Pingyong County. The bait was set. The Hafeng bandits would strike. My guards watched the trap take shape. They finally saw my grand strategy. Even the heavens helped, providing a scorching sun for days. The intense heat dried my lethal rice with incredible speed. Bishing's intel finally arrived. I smiled, realizing why the system hadn't given me traditional steel blades. With 300 bandits looming, my growing city is still too fragile for a frontal war. My recruited guard only totals 400 men, a small precious force. Trading lives in a battle to the death is a price I simply cannot afford. Compared to steel, this invisible paraquat is a far more efficient tool of slaughter. This is so much easier. A sinister, radiant smile crossed my face. How sweet victory tastes. The final sack was ready. Every grain was coated in death. I watched the bags seal. My soldiers hesitated, looking at the piles, not out of mercy for bandits, but pure fear. My Pingyong warriors harbored absolutely zero mercy for those low-life criminals. Seeing such precious rations wasted was a total sin. As I declared the iron discipline, many stepped forward. They volunteered to march out and raid the Hafeng camp this very instant. Their courage was legendary, their spirits ablaze. Yet I wouldn't let my elite few die on that mountain. My reputation throughout Pingyong remains as unshakable and solid as a massive mountain. Any other commander would have lost control. These hot-blooded men would have drawn steel and charged blindly. Facing my officers, I reminded them that these rations belonged to our own starving people. This food was their only lifeline. Everyone knew those bandits had finally pushed me too far. The Hafeng den needed total annihilation. I ordered my men to steel their hearts for the storm. Pure fury ignited in their gazes. Still, I knew brute force alone wouldn't crack that fortress. That camp swarmed with 300 dangerous deserters and exiles. I ensured every soldier understood the stakes. Suddenly a shout echoed through the ranks. "My lord, those cowards don't scare me one bit. They failed against the Xiong and Qiandadai, so now they just play act as bandits. Just give the word and we'll crush their skulls," yelled young Wang Ting, a desperate refugee survivor. Growing up on the city's edge, his life was a brutal struggle against the mountain's shadow. His kin and his entire village had been tormented by those Hafeng bastards time and again. The moment Wang Ting finished, a deafening roar of agreement exploded from the troops. I signaled for silence with a single hand. "I see your fire," I declared, "but your lives are priceless. Don't compare yourselves to the mountain filth." I paced through the ranks, stopping before a lone soldier. Locking eyes with him, I asked calmly, "Do you know why?" The soldier hesitated, looking completely lost. I turned back to Wang Ting, repeating the heavy question. "Do you know why?" "Because your lives aren't just yours. They belong to your parents, your friends, and all of Pingyong. You must survive to shield your families in Binyong, and naturally to protect your lord, me." I kept that thought private, watching as the weight of their noble mission finally hit home. The nightmare of failing their loved ones, or their magistrate, was a burden they couldn't endure. Satisfaction swelled within me. I seized the moment. That camp is distant, but it remains our territory. Whoever dares offend Pingyong shall be utterly annihilated, no matter where they crawl and hide. I'll handpick 50 elite warriors. We'll deliver the grain and erase that Hafeng scum from the map. The rest guard the city. Hearing there were only 50 slots, the courtyard erupted into a frenzy. Every warrior scrambled to enlist, desperate to prove their worth in the fires of battle. 7 days after the heist, things shifted at the Hafeng camp. Bandit leader Sia Bao finally remembered his hostages. He instantly summoned his ruthless right-hand man Du Yanlong to the main hall. "Where's the Zoji store payment?" he barked. "It's been a week. Why hasn't the ransom arrived yet?" "Let's slaughter those 10 prisoners and stop wasting our food." Du Yanlong nodded with cold eyes. He rose ready for a bloodbath when a panicked henchman came sprinting into the hall. "Chief, the Zoji stores is here with the ransom." "How many men did they bring?" Du Yanlong demanded, narrowing his eyes. "Just the grain escorts, sir," the messenger reported. 6 people, 2 grain wagons, and a wagon of wine. Xia Bao and Du Yanlong shared a grin. "Perfect timing." Xia Bao chuckled. "Any later and they'd be collecting rotting corpses instead of servants." Du Yanlong blinked his one good eye, a cruel, twisted expression spreading across his face. "Brother, why not seize everything, the grain, the wine, and the new guys will demand a second ransom?" "Patience, brother," as Xia Bao replied. "If we break our word, who will ever pay us again? We must preserve our professional reputation for the next big score." Du Yanlong shrugged indifferently. "Fine, big brother. Let's go hand over those pathetic prisoners." Du Yanlong rallied his thugs to move the captives. I watched as they dragged out the terrified villagers. Down at the mountain base, 6 rugged, sun-bronzed men suddenly came into view. They sat atop wagons overflowing with grain and wine jars. I had hand-selected these 6 warriors for this crucial moment. I ensured they looked like typical everyday peasants. Among them stood Wang Ting, one of my finest operatives from Pingyang. My orders were clear: show zero hostility. One slip-up or hint of aggression, and our entire mission would crumble instantly. We would fail to rescue the captives, and my master plan for the county would be utterly ruined. Du Yanlong and 12 armed bandits surrounded our team. He pressed cold steel against Wang Ting's throat with a suspicious glare. "Hey, kid? Haven't I seen your face somewhere before?" Wang Ting faked pure terror, stumbling back from the blade. "My lord has a legendary memory," he stammered, bowing deeply. "I am from Wanga village. I saw you last year." Du Yanlong recalled the brutal raid on Wang Yao village 6 months ago. He pulled the sword from Wang Ting's neck and let out a satisfied grunt. "Didn't expect a brat like you at the Zoji store." Wang Ting forced a submissive smile. "Life is hard, my lord. I'm just trying to survive. I work for the boss purely to keep my belly full. Behold, everything is exactly as promised. This wagon is loaded with top-tier grain of the highest quality. 1,000 jin exactly, maybe even more." Wang Ting opened a sack, revealing a handful of pristine, pure white rice. Du Yanlong stared at the grains with his one good eye. He couldn't resist letting out a loud, guttural laugh. "Your boss is a sensible man," he barked. "He knows how to use gold to stay out of trouble." Wang Ting maintained his friendly, submissive mask. "My boss truly didn't realize who ruled these lands," he added humbly. "He didn't know you great lords owned this road. Please accept these jars of fine wine as his humble apology." Du Yanlong, the second in command of Black Wind Pass, eyed the jars with intense interest. The extra tribute of fine wine made his greed flare, but he decided to test the waters one last time. "You brat, is this a trap? Is there poison in this wine?" Wang Ting's composure remained absolutely ironclad. He didn't let himself feel intimidated for even a single second. Even with the bandit leader looming over him, he just laughed. "Great king, what are you saying? If you doubt me, I'll drink right now." Wang Ting acted thirsty as he broke the seal on a jar. A rich aroma instantly filled the air. Just as he leaned in, Du Yanlong slammed his heavy blade onto the table. He pressed the cold steel against Wang Ting's neck. "This wine is a treasure. A dog like you is unworthy of a single drop." Frozen in his tracks, Wang Ting rushed to explain. "But great king, you worried about poison. I only wanted to put your mind at ease." The men quickly chimed in together. "That's right, we only wanted to show you it was safe." "We were just checking for poison, great king." Du Yanlong shoved Wang Ting back with his sword's spine. "Go back and tell your boss," he growled. "Don't you dare try any filthy tricks on me." "Yes, naturally, my boss is still in Pingyang. He'll come in a few days once business is settled. He'll personally bring more gifts to apologize." Du Yanlong looked satisfied, sheathing his sword with a smug smirk. Your boss finally knows what's good for him. Tell him those gifts better be massive if he wants to stay. Wang Ting kept nodding like a loyal servant playing his role to perfection. But inside he thought, act tough while you can. For 300 beasts like you, my gift will be legendary. Du Yanlong let out a piercing whistle signaling to the group lurking behind him. His thugs brought down the 10 captured villagers from Pingyang. Wang Ting's team rushed to receive the prisoners. They didn't waste a single heartbeat hurrying away from the cursed Black Wind Pass. Du Yanlong ignored them, busy hauling the tribute. Wang Ting led the 10 bound villagers through the thick brush. He led them to a secluded spot where our main force waited. Finally, they were reunited with me. The moment those 10 villagers saw me, they broke down into uncontrollable emotional tears. With a thud, they fell to their knees. Lord Magistrate, thank you for saving us. We won't forget your mercy. We are yours to command. I looked at them and saw their unwavering, soul-deep loyalty. We will walk through fire for you, they cried. I hurried to help them up, checking for any injuries. Their wounds were merely superficial, so I provided a bottle of elite medicine to treat their minor injuries. I ordered everyone to regroup and follow me back to Pingyang County to wait for 3 days. Once the time was right, we would launch our final decisive strike against Black Wind Pass. The rescued villagers couldn't fathom the 3-day delay, yet their absolute faith in their magistrate never wavered. Meanwhile, the bandits at Black Wind Pass celebrated wildly as they hauled the stolen mountain of supplies. Du Yanlong approached his older brother, the leader, Siaba King, feeling a sudden pang of greedy regret. That Zoji grain store didn't even try to haggle. Their boss must be absolutely drowning in gold. But Siaba King was already eyeing the jars of premium wine with a dark, satisfied, and greedy smirk. Second brother, there is much you don't understand about a wealthy man like Zoe, he remarked. We must be patient and let the wealth flow naturally. Squeezing him too hard will only backfire. If pushed to desperation, he might use his vast riches to hire a private army against us. What if he recruits elite soldiers to wipe us out? Hearing this, Du Yanlong felt the mood shift. The logic was flawless, so he nodded in silent admiration. Big brother, you truly do think of everything. From now on, we will demand a tribute of 100 silver for every single person captured. And every time that Zoji store passes through our territory, we'll strip them of a heavy silver toll. The 2 bandit leaders shared a wicked glance before bursting into a fit of loud, arrogant laughter. Siaba King reached out, grabbing a fistful of the stolen grain to inspect their prize. He admired the pure white rice before tossing it back, then dipped a ladle into the fine wine. The rich liquid burned down his throat instantly, lifting his spirits without revealing a hint of its secret. Feeling like an untouchable king, he shouted, "Tonight we feast!" and the bandits erupted into thunderous cheers. Little did these fools realize the catastrophic price they were about to pay for this one meal. For the banquet they prepared tonight was actually a grand invitation for death itself to join them. Meanwhile, back at the Zhou family grain shop in Pingyang, the business Shan managed was in total chaos. Ever since the robbery, he had been frantically hunting for any intelligence regarding the elusive Black Wind Pass. The shop was forced to close its doors, and our influence in the marketplace vanished overnight. This left the Yia family grain merchants as the sole rulers of the city, unchecked and unchallenged. Consequently, grain prices across Pingyang County began to skyrocket, hitting 2 taels of silver per single caddy. I took the seat of honor in the main hall while Bai reported the district's dire situation. He detailed every grim development. I looked at him questioning, "So, the Yi family reported the bandits?" Bishong nodded, confirming, "Yes, my lord. They were the very first to come forward with information." The moment I heard that, my instincts flared. Something about their sudden kindness didn't sit right. Our shops were direct competitors with no relationship. Why would the Yi family help us so quickly? There was only one logical conclusion: the Yi family was secretly in league with those mountain bandits. If they were colluding to steal my grain, then their intel was nothing more than a lethal trap. With only 50 soldiers, my entire plan rested on the success of the poison-laced wine and grain. 3 days later at dawn, I gathered my 50-man squad after a heavy meal to begin the ascent. Carrying 2 days of rations, I gave Bang one final task before we departed for the mountain. I instructed him to pack his goods in Pingyang district and prepare to return to our home base. Grain prices had reached a breaking point, and I knew the starving commoners were nearing their limit. Soon they would flee the corruption of Pingyang and seek refuge within my own governed district. Guided by Wang Ting, our group moved like shadows along a narrow trail toward the bandit stronghold. By the time we reached the fortress, the sun was high. I observed the watchtower from a distance. Only a few henchmen stood guard, but they were wobbling and desperately clinging to pillars for support. It had been 3 full days since the bandits of Black Wind Pass began their grand feast. The poison within the wine and porridge was finally taking hold, leaving the bandit leaders weak and heavy. At first they thought everything was perfectly normal. They dismissed it as a massive hangover. By day 2, they realized something was horribly wrong. Their bodies grew heavy. It felt like their very life force was slowly fading away. Even 2 steps were exhausting. Xia Baoying and Du Yanlong doubted their own tolerance. By the 3rd day, their skin turned a deathly frigid shade. Sickly gold jaundice spread glowing on their skin like a dark, haunting sunset. Now Xia Baoying and Du Yanlong couldn't ignore the grim reality any longer. Their entire crew had been poisoned. Before they could react, chaos erupted. Battle cries shook the camp. Storm Black Wind. Pass, take Xia Baoying's head. My 3-day plan worked perfectly. Not one bandit could muster the strength to fight. 50 guards from Pingyang charged in, and I led them through the gates. Backed by 10 rescued villagers, 61 of us stormed that den of thieves. We tore through them like hungry tigers among a flock of helpless sheep. Warriors like Wang Ting and Gualu dealt lethal strikes with every single swing. The villagers drove their spears home. The bandits' massive numbers meant nothing now. 300 men were falling like sick chickens one after the other. They were so weak, they couldn't withstand even a single blow from us. My guards from Pingyang burned for revenge against the Black Cloud Fort. It was time to settle the score. They fought with blood-red eyes. Hearing the chaos, the leaders realized we were few. "Insolent fools!" Du Yanlong roared. "How dare this tiny group challenge us? Brother, I'll crush them myself." He tried to rally his men to seize the antidote, but his strength failed. His massive iron saber, weighing over 20 pounds, clattered to the floor. Xia Baoying panicked, his heart racing as he reached for steel. The weapon he once swung with ease now felt heavy as a mountain. He couldn't even lift it. "Run. We have to escape now." He stood paralyzed, unable to raise a blade. Xia Baoying lived by survival. While the mountains stay green, we can always fight again. He'd survived worse. Du Yanlong and Xia Baoying clung to each other, desperate to find an exit. They scrambled for the secret passage, but my men were already closing in. With spears and sabers drawn, we trapped them inside the fortress hall. Wang Ting spotted them fleeing and lunged forward with a massive explosive leap. He unleashed a strike of overwhelming power. The blade slammed down, blocking their path. The 2 leaders stumbled back in terror. Wang Ting gave no quarter, delivering 2 brutal kicks to their guts. Xia Baoying and his second-in-command collapsed instantly to the cold floor. As they scrambled up, they felt the cold bite of steel against their necks. Du Yanlong looked up at the young man who leveled them. "It's you! How did I miss it?" The killing intent in Wang Ting's eyes was unmistakable. The weak act was gone. Xia Baoying hissed, "Who is this brat?" "Just the village kid who brought us supplies," Du Yanlong spat. Wang Ting's voice boomed, "Tie them up! Bring them before my lord!" Bound and beaten, they were thrown before me in the high hall. I stared down at the kneeling Xia Baoying. He still glared with arrogant defiance. "You insolent brat, who are you to attack my mountain?" I merely scoffed. 10 days ago, you raided my supplies and kidnapped my people. For a man of honor, 10 days is the perfect window for vengeance. After the hell I endured to find you, the great fortress leader doesn't even recognize my face. How disappointing. Suddenly, Baoching froze, his eyes wide with terror as the truth hit him. You're the owner of that grain shop." "Bingo," I replied coldly. He never imagined a single raid would punch his ticket to see the king of hell. "You shameless coward, poisoning the wine. You have 0 honor as a warrior." Duong hissed through gritted teeth. His entire body was trembling with pure, unadulterated indignation. He tried to spit at me, but he was so weak the pathetic film just dribbled onto his own chest. Realizing he was cornered, Sia Baoqing finally broke. He forced a pathetic, trembling smile and began to stammer. Master Hao Lord Zhao, please spare us, and we'll be your loyal dogs forever. We'll go wherever you point. We'll follow every command without question. Honestly, there was no antidote for my 100 herb wilt. Even if a cure existed, I wouldn't waste it on a coward who only bullies the weak. But first I needed to know who pulled the strings behind the raid on my supplies. I glared at him. So you want the cure for the 4-content tendon softening powder? It'll cost you. I totally made that name up to mess with them. Sia Baoqing fell for it, and so did my own soldiers. Every single one of them was busy memorizing the name of this supposedly legendary deadly poison. Sia Baoqing caught on fast and started groveling. This humble servant understands I'll tell you everything. Turns out the raid on my grain was a setup orchestrated by someone within Pingyang County. Manager Yi Yin Rang from the Ye family grain shop was the mole. It was exactly as I suspected. In this business rivalry turns bitter fast. Everything traced back to the powerful Ye family of Pingyang County. No wonder they met right after the incident. They leaked the stronghold's location just to set me up. They wanted to watch the Zoji grain shop crumble and become the laughingstock of the entire city. I leaned in and asked, what did they promise you? I wanted every dirty detail of their deal. The second-in-command Dianlong saw his brother had already folded like a house of cards. He scrambled to answer first. Manager Yen gave us 20 gold ingots. He promised us even more later. They were told they could sell all my stolen refined grains right back to the Ye family shops. I laughed internally. The Ye family sure was spending a fortune just to try and sabotage me. Between Yongxiao and Baoqing, I'd already cleared over 100,000 silver taels in the city. But even with all that wealth, I hadn't seen a single solid gold ingot until this very moment. This family was playing for high stakes, dropping 20 gold ingots just to mess with my shop. They weren't stingy with their sabotage, but Dianlong's confession gave me the perfect leverage to crush them. Then I remembered the best part. This stronghold was likely overflowing with stolen gold, silver, and jewels. I reached into my robe and pulled out a small, mysterious vial. I shook it slowly before their desperate eyes. I have the antidote right here. Do you want it? Hope flared in the dull eyes of Ma and Du Yanlong. You've occupied this mountain for years, I noted. You've hoarded plenty of loot. Hand it all over and I'll give you the cure to save your lives. With death knocking, they weren't about to let greed get in the way of surviving. This wasn't a novel with hidden traps or secret rooms. Finding the treasure was only a matter of time. They realized that leading me to their secret stash was the only card they had left to play. To them, this was just a temporary setback. Ma thought, once this brat sees the gold, he'll be distracted. That's when I'll snatch the cure and kill this bastard for poisoning me in the first place. The more Ma plotted, the more certain his revenge felt. He was already dreaming of my demise. He imagined himself a master strategist. Enduring humiliation now, he flashed a fake smile and led the way. Meanwhile, the rest of the Hafeng stronghold bandits watched the scene in a heavy, terrified silence. They stood frozen as their mighty chief and second-in-command were dragged away in heavy chains. With their leader's limbs rotting from my poison, the outlaws lost their will to fight my city guards. One by one, the bandits dropped their steel and surrendered. Bind every last one of them, I commanded. Outside Yuji Hall, my battle-hardened legion finally came to a standstill. The poison made Maiba and Du Yanlong's steps agonizing. Slowly, they led me to their secret vault. This was the hidden lair where they stashed mountains of stolen gold and jewels. Every coin was pillaged from the innocent. I gazed at chests overflowing with blood-stained treasures. 2 massive trunks sat before me, heavy with the weight of their sins against Pingyang County. It was sickeningly clear how many lives were extinguished to fill these coffers. But as I scanned the room, something far more valuable caught my eye. It wasn't the gold, but the cold gleam of an arsenal packed with deadly steel. High-quality sabers and recurved bows were stacked to the ceiling of the stronghold's armory. I even discovered 3 pristine sets of heavy plate armor hidden among the loot. My blacksmiths in Pingyang were too slow. Their forge had become a bottleneck for my expansion. They couldn't keep up with the demand, but this stockpile made my eyes blaze with ambition. Seizing the moment, Maiba pleaded desperately, "Lord Zhou, please look at what we offer." He was fishing for an antidote. I didn't give him an answer. I only tested him. "Are you absolutely certain you wish to submit to my rule?" I asked, voice like ice. Believing his clumsy acting had fooled me, he beat his chest with a frantic false loyalty. "We shall serve you until our final breath," he cried. "Then tell me how many men remain." "I need to count for the antidote," I lied. Pure joy flooded their desperate faces. But as the brothers locked eyes, a murderous flash flickered within their gaze. "My lord?" Du Yanlong spoke quickly. "Counting us two, there are 318 people." I nodded with cold indifference. "Wang Ding, take half our men. Exclude these two leaders. Do not leave a single one of the remaining 316 alive. Give them a swift death. The rest of you move these supplies to the main hall." Wang Ding barked orders, his men drawing sabers in a lethal chorus. Meiba stood frozen. He truly believed I'd recruit his followers. He never imagined I could be this ruthless. "You despicable villain," he roared. "You promised us the antidote. How dare you break your word?" Feeling utterly betrayed, the two brothers lunged at me in a blind, suicidal fury. My soldiers instantly kicked them to the dirt. "Don't kill them yet," I commanded. "I have plans for them at the capital." I walked toward the armor, speaking calmly. "I never promised you an antidote. The poison has already seeped into your very marrow. Not even a god could save you now." The leaders lay breathless and broken. The arrogance in their eyes vanished, replaced instantly by the hollow shadow of despair. Even if I had a cure, I'd never waste it on scum who only bring misery. They were a plague on the common folk. As for the bandits, the reality was simple. I didn't order their deaths out of cruelty, but because they had all consumed my poison. To leave them alive would only prolong their agonizing, inevitable suffering. This was mercy and a baptism in blood for my soldiers to truly mature. Only through the reality of the slaughter can a soldier's soul be forged. If the odds weren't so stacked against us, I might have avoided such a vile method. But desperate times demanded lethal measures. Like poultry in a slaughterhouse, they struggled. The screams echoing outside the hall were gut-wrenching and raw. I felt a flicker of hesitation but crushed it. Then a soldier led me deeper. We reached the dungeons of Heisen Fort, and what I saw solidified my resolve. My decision was right. 10 women stood there in rags, broken by the stronghold's cruelty. Haunted eyes peered from bodies mapped with brutal, jagged scars. I stepped forward and spoke softly, "Fear no more. I am Pingyang's magistrate. My men and I have come to raise this hellhole. Your nightmare ends today." Though my voice rang true, they remained frozen. To these broken souls, the concept of freedom felt like a lie. Suddenly, Wang Ting and the one-armed Gulu charged inside. Wang Ting stormed the cell like a man driven by desperation. His gaze locked onto a broken figure on the stone floor. In his panic, he cast aside all etiquette. He sprinted past me, nearly shoving me aside just to reach her side. Cradling the dying woman, he wailed, "Chunai, it's me, your brother Ting is finally here." He shook her with tragic desperation. I almost stopped his reckless movements, but miraculously, the woman began to wake. Chunai's eyes flickered open, finding Wang Ting standing over her, soaked in the blood of her tormentors. Sobbing through the agony, she whispered, "Brother Ting, did the bandits capture you as well? Were you dragged to this peak too?" "No, I've finally come to take you home. Forgive me for being late." As they embraced, I realized why his drive was so intense. Wang Ting had literally walked through fire just to reclaim his precious sister. Imagine the iron will required to deliver supplies here while his heart burned with hidden fury. Truly impressive restraint. With such a steel-tempered soul, Wang Ting's path leads toward legendary greatness. Seeing the reunion, the other captives finally felt hope. I seized the moment to reassure them. "You're safe. He is a Pingyang soldier. The monsters can't hurt you anymore." Then a shaky voice drifted from the shadows. "Are you really the law? Are those devils truly gone?" A man crawled towards the bars, weeping. "My lord, we are the poor hostages snatched by Heisen Fort. Our families were too poor for ransom, so those bastards carved us into these unrecognizable shapes." I'd read of ancient horrors, but witnessing such inhumanity firsthand was chilling beyond words. I looked at Gulu. What of the filth outside? He drew a blood-soaked blade and snarled. I slaughtered them like animals. All 316 men are dead on the ground. 40 guard the perimeter, 10 are digging pits. My voice turned cold. These monsters didn't deserve a burial. Stop digging. Use firewood instead. One spark will turn this den of filth and its corpses to ash. Then prepare a feast. I looked at the broken siblings Fort had dragged into this nightmare. I strictly ordered my men to ensure the survivors didn't touch the poisoned rations. Slowly, the captives emerged, leaning on one another as they limped from that suffocating darkness, their hollow gazes fixed on the mountain of corpses piled at the summit. The remains of the Heisen bandits lay in a grotesque, mangled heap. The gore made my stomach twist, but as their leader, I had to remain an unwavering pillar of stone. Surprisingly, the survivors didn't look away. They fell upon the corpses with a primal, vengeful fury. Pure, unadulterated hatred had completely drowned out their sense of horror. Suddenly, a scout arrived with urgent news. My lord riders are at the gates demanding entry. I tensed, sensing a fresh danger. Was there more to Fort than I had realized? Did the enemy have hidden reserves? My 60 elite warriors had fought with everything they had. They'd annihilated the bandits in one go, but the carnage had left them utterly exhausted. A fresh ambush would mean our certain death. But the soldiers' next report eased my mounting dread. The riders fly the Ye family banner. There are over 20 of them led by their chief. They seem to be hauling heavy chests of offerings. The Ye family right on my doorstep. Perfect. It's time I gave them a proper greeting. I snarled internally. These were the rats who had dared to sabotage my grain supplies. Leading the group was Yi Yanran, the mastermind behind their grain operations. 20 porters followed carrying gifts, and the gold bars meant to pay for the raid on me. 10 gold bars remained. But the moment they reached the top, the air grew thick with dread. Something felt wrong. This wasn't the Fort Yenron remembered from his previous visits. Usually the camp was a bustling hive of life. Now eerie silence. Yenron's instincts immediately screamed that something was off. The guards standing at the mountain fortress gate were drenched in fresh crimson blood. Terror gripped Yenron and his men, but they were already at the threshold. There was no turning back now. Retreat meant certain death. Yenron swallowed his fear and desperately steeled his nerves to face whatever lay inside. He announced his arrival. With a heavy groan, the massive gates of Fort swung open like a monster's maw. As the Yi family filed into the camp, Yenron fought to keep his mask of calm from shattering. He slipped a silver ingot from his sleeve and approached the nearest guard with a trembling bribe. The man was soaked in blood, but Yenron forced a smile. Greetings, brave friend. Why is the air so heavy today? But my training was absolute. The soldier didn't even glance at the silver. His military discipline was unbreakable. Silence! Keep your nose out of business that isn't yours, he barked, dragging Yenron deeper into the fort. They were marched directly toward the Tiger's Head Hall, the very heart of this deadly den of thieves. Boom! The gate slammed shut behind them, and Yenron felt his heart drop straight into his stomach. Cold dread crawled up his throat. He had to arm himself with courage or lose his mind right there. He prayed the great leader had answers, but every step deeper only fueled his rising sense of panic. He looked down and his breath hitched. The path was painted with splatters of dark, fresh blood. Then his blood ran cold. A severed hand lay there. A bandit casually tossed it aside like common trash. This was true brutality. Only the most cold-blooded monsters could act with such chilling indifference. To them, life was cheap. Dealing with Fort was like trying to skin a tiger while it was still alive. Was this deal a golden opportunity, or had he just walked straight into a blood-soaked nightmare? Suffocating dread filled his chest. Outside the hall stood 10 warriors, their steel sabers dripping with fresh gore. These giants covered in crimson looked like demons that had just crawled out of the deepest pit of hell. I'd handpicked these monsters specifically to break his spirit. Judging by his face, the intimidation worked perfectly. Yenron and his men turned ghost white. The moment they stepped inside, it felt like their souls had abandoned them. Their knees buckled. They collapsed at the entrance, too paralyzed by fear to take a single step further. From my throne, I gave a silent signal. A hulking brute lunged forward and snatched Yenron by the throat. He hauled him by the collar, dragging him across the floor, while the others watched in absolute terror. Terrified of being cut down, the porters crawled into the hall, trembling with every agonizing inch. Time to play the villain. I sharpened my voice and barked out the ancient secret slang of the mountain bandits. The mushroom witch path, what price? Yenron just lay there, eyes wide with utter pathetic confusion. He didn't have a clue what I was saying. He was too scared to even attempt a guess. One thing was clear, I wasn't the old leader. He had no idea what bloody coup had transformed this place. All he could do was press his forehead against the cold floor, his entire body shaking like a leaf. Seeing his state, I realized the slang was wasted. I dropped the act and let out a cold, sharp huff. Bang, I slammed the table. I asked you a question, why have you come to my fort? That snapped him out of his trance. Great leader, he stammered, scrambling to find his words. I am Yenron, manager of the Yi family store. I had an arrangement with the previous chief. I'm here for the final payment. I feigned surprise. So that old fool actually knew how to do business. Probably just more looting. Well, did you bring the tribute you promised? I brought it. It's right here. Yenron frantically signaled to his terrified men. A clumsy servant hurried forward with a red wooden box, dropping it beside Yenron. Not to me, you idiot. Give it to the great leader. Yenron stayed glued to the floor, silently cursing his subordinate's stupidity. Using his last ounce of strength, he shoved the trembling servant toward my throne. The poor soul had no choice. He moved toward me, his knees knocking together with every terrifying step. Those few meters seemed to take a lifetime. He set the box down and scrambled back away from me. He bolted back like a shot arrow, dropping behind Yenrod. I reached out slowly, prying open the ornate lid. Inside sat 10 gleaming gold ingots. A rush of pure adrenaline surged through my veins at the sight. My heart thundered with greed, yet I kept my expression as cold as ice. No one would see my joy. Instead, I smashed the table and roared his name like a demon. Yenron nearly jumped out of his skin. That thunderous crash terrified everyone into a deathly silence. The pathetic man looked like he was seconds away from wetting himself right there. I glared, bringing up the dirty deal. You promised 20 gold ingots for that grain store raid, but I only see 10 here. Isn't the Yi family supposed to be a powerhouse in this county? Or do you think my blade isn't sharp enough to collect the rest of my debt? Pale as a ghost, the manager stammered for his life. Boss Lee, please. This servant already paid half. I paid Chief Sia personally before the job. These 10 ingots are just the final balance. Who the hell is Sia? As of today, this camp belongs to the Fusai. Did you put that gold in my hand directly? He just stared at me in a terrified daze. If the gold didn't touch my palm, your family still owes me 10 more ingots. He wanted to scream that I wasn't even the one who raided it, but terror choked him. Cursing his luck, he stayed silent while I accused him of cheating. I barked for Gulu to approach. Sandoval, he just stood there like an idiot, too busy trying to look tough to notice me. He was just putting on a fierce act for the pathetic weaklings kneeling on the floor. I kicked him back to reality. He finally remembered his new alias and scrambled over to me. Great boss? What are your orders? He asked, instantly fixing his tone to sound respectful. Is the trash on the back hill still there? Take them to see the bodies of Sia and Du. Show them exactly what happens to those who dare owe me money. I nodded toward the back. The guards caught the signal and closed in on the group like a pack of hungry wolves. They dragged the Yi group toward the hill, ignoring the terrified porters who carried the gifts. I only ordered my men to seize the manager, his lackey, and the young master. On the hill, the dead bandits were piled high, a gruesome mountain of rotting, mangled flesh. A pampered man like Yenron had never seen such a bloody, horrific sight in his entire life. The metallic stench of death hit them like a hammer. All three began to vomit violently. My own gut twisted, but I kept my face like a stone wall, showing zero fear. Throw them in, let them find their old friends among the rotting dead, I barked. Gulu didn't hesitate, shoving the 3 terrified men toward the wall of corpses. They recoiled in horror, desperate to escape that mountain of decaying, fly-ridden flesh. Yenron didn't make it 2 steps before a cold steel blade blocked his path. A blood-stained edge glinted before his eyes as Gulu snarled at them with pure malice. Go find Sia right now. Maybe he can help you pay off that remaining debt. Either find those corpses or hand over the gold to us immediately. 10 gold ingots was a king's ransom that no grain merchant could easily replace. As a mere manager, Yanran lacked the authority to give away such a massive fortune. Cornered and hopeless, he forced his shaking legs toward the pile of the dead. Suddenly, a rotting corpse slid from the pile, landing with a heavy thud right at his feet. The dead man's hollow stare pierced his soul. They were shaking so hard they'd already wet themselves. Yanran collapsed, kowtowing frantically while screaming and begging for his miserable life. We'll pay. Every last coin, I asked coldly. Do you even know why I killed them? He stayed face down in the dirt, stammering about debts. Wrong, I whispered, my voice like a razor. He ate 2 bowls of jelly at my shop, but he only paid me for 1. This madman dragged me and my brothers 1,000 miles from the Cu desert to this wasteland. Yinrang stood there paralyzed, caught between laughing and crying at the pure insanity. 1,000-mile trek for 1 bowl of jelly and 300 lives lost. It was utter madness. He cursed Baoing, that greedy glutton whose jelly craving just wiped the Black Wind stronghold off the map. Yi Yin trembled violently as I approached the young heir, leaning in to whisper a chilling question. Tell me, kid, shouldn't I settle the score for that stolen bowl of jelly with Sia Baoing? The young master stared at the mountain of corpses, losing his voice. I gripped his shoulder and he fainted. Yi Yinrong watched in terror, realizing I was 10 times more ruthless than any bandit king. Yi Yin scrambled to answer, nodding with frantic desperation. Yes, he should pay. He must pay. That Sia Baoing is a snake. How dare he cheat the great boss over some simple jelly? Death was too good for him. Satisfied, I ordered my men to drag the trio back to the hall. Entering the Yuji pavilion, Yi Yin rang, and his remaining lackey finally sucked in a desperate breath. Up on that mountain, the suffocating stench of blood had made even breathing feel like a death sentence. Now back inside, they looked like souls escaped from hell. I let them recover while I focused on business. Manager Yi, you look like a smart man. Surely you won't decline my 15 gold ingots. Rang's eyes nearly popped out. 15. But boss, it was 10 just now. Why 15? I kicked my boots onto the table, leaning back coldly. If you'd brought 10 today, we'd have no trouble. Consider the extra 5 as interest for my wasted time. Is that a problem for you? 1 bowl of jelly cost 300 lives. 5 gold ingots is a total bargain by comparison. Don't you agree? Yin shook his head frantically. No, it's not expensive at all, not one bit. The great boss is truly merciful, he wailed, his face ghostly pale from his pathetic display. A devious plan for revenge sparked in my mind. Manager Yi, I can tell your heart isn't in it. Do you think I'm just a brute? The Yi family actually expects a gift from a bandit chief. The moment that thought hit him, Yinrang began to shake with absolute terror. He feared one snap of my fingers would bring a severed head as a gruesome welcoming present. Yinrang waved his hands wildly, desperate to refuse. He looked like he was fighting for his life. No, please, great boss, stop. We didn't even bring the 10 gold ingots you originally demanded. The fact that you're sparing us today is already a divine blessing beyond our wildest dreams. How could I accept a gift from a king? I scoffed. First time my generosity has been rejected. What's the deal? Is your family trying to make me look like a fool too? I was playing the villain perfectly, but for the man kneeling there, it was absolute psychological torture. Yin Rang was spiraling, praying I wouldn't present him with a blood-soaked trophy from the camp. With no other choice, Yi Yin decided to play his family's ultimate trump card. Boss Li, do you know the prefect of Yangha? Like I could ever forget that bastard's name. I remember it clearly from the very second I transmigrated into this world. I was exiled to this wasteland with a target on my back thanks to that snake Yi Huangmin. When Yi Yin Rang mentioned the prefect, everything clicked. The Yi family was connected to my enemy. Yi Huangmin clearly shared a special relationship with these people. I suspected that traitorous dog came from this family. Turns out my hunch was dead on the money. I decided to play it cool. I feigned total ignorance and asked, "The prefect, who's that?" Seeing Boss Li Fu looked clueless, Yi Yin Rang's arrogance suddenly came flooding back to him. His name is Yi Huangmin. He is the proudest son of our Yi family here in Pingyong. I was grinning like a demon inside. Finally, all my old debts were getting paid today. I was definitely going to give him that gift now. A gift he'd never forget. So you're all relatives of Lord Yi. I faked a look of shock, making Yin believe his bluff worked. He mistook my silence for fear, his chest swelling with newfound bravado. To be fair, I am also a man of refined taste, raised by the morning sun and the midnight moon. I buried myself in the classics for 2.5 years, yet the scholar's life remained forever out of reach. Ultimately, I chose a life of blood and steel to survive. Yin Rang stared, completely baffled by my confession. A scholar turned cold-blooded bandit. The concept was absurd, but I kept the deception flowing perfectly. Besides, I whispered, none hold my respect more than the true masters of the brush and scroll. I have always felt a soul-deep connection to elite men like you who conquered the imperial exams with honor. And today fate has finally crossed my path with a distinguished member of the great Yi clan. Swallowing the bait, Yin Rang actually believed I was intimidated. He was already plotting how to save his gold. He thought his prestige could buy his life and save 15 gold ingots. Then my voice turned razor sharp. That is all the more reason to honor you. Take our guests to the warehouse right now. Bring out every bag of that fresh grain Xia Baoqing plundered 3 days ago. Realizing the gift was mere grain rather than a severed head, Yin Rang let out a massive sigh of relief. Old Man Lu caught on to his new alias instantly and hurried to the warehouse, finding the stolen supplies. It was then the old man realized I, the great boss, had a much more calculated scheme in mind. I had specifically ordered the grain from exactly 3 days ago. Was it just last week's stale leftovers? No. This batch was laced with the lethal Xiangwan poison the magistrate had warned us about. Luckily, Yin had not noticed the trap. I had to ensure the tainted grain was not mixed with the clean stock. Every sack of poisoned rice was marked with a thorny symbol. Soon the bandits hauled the heavy loads out. They marched into the Tiger Wing Hall, dropping the massive deadly load right in the center of the room. Manager Yi, does your family not specialize in the legendary grain trade? This is premium quality, the very same grain plundered from your rivals at the Zoji store. My brothers and I paid a visit to the Black Wind Fortress today to settle some business. We collected a debt but left this hall untouched. Now I'm gifting this entire mountain of rice to you. Now what excuse is left to refuse me? Hand over those 15 gold ingots at once. He stared at the pile, nearly 700 kilograms of rice. In this world, it was worth a fortune. It did not quite equal 15 gold ingots, but losing coin was better than losing his head. Yin forced a smile. Trapped by the grain, he stood trembling. I stepped down from my throne and personally helped him up. Normally, I would keep a leader as a hostage, but the Yi family are scholars, true pillars of the elite. Out of respect for Prefect Yi Wang, I will make a grand exception and let you leave. Yin Rang was terrified. I looked like a gentle scholar, but my soul was more ruthless than any common bandit. He could not forget the massacre, 300 men dead at the Black Wind Fortress by my hand. He knew every word I spoke carried a hidden threat. I continued, my expression as calm as still water. You may leave the mountain today, but I'm sending one of my brothers to accompany you. He will go with the manager to collect those 15 gold ingots. Old Man Lu, are you ready? Old Man Lu realized the Lord Magistrate was putting his loyalty to the ultimate test right then. He pounded his chest with his remaining arm. Do not you worry, big brother, I will finish this mission. I will bring back our 15 gold ingots. But what if these elites refuse to pay us? I silenced him with a sharp wave of my hand, shifting my cold gaze back toward Yin Rang. Flashing a terrifyingly gentle smile, I dropped a line from a classic, "You are a man of refined elegance. I'm certain a gentleman like you would not dream of letting my brothers return empty-handed." A cold shiver raced down Yin Rang's spine as he stammered. He finally understood the true meaning of fear. It was not my martial skills that haunted him. It was the nightmare of a bandit with an education. This terrifying version of myself was a role I had only been playing for a short while. I had only studied the world's ways for 2.5 years. Any longer, and I would be truly unstoppable. Clad in fresh robes, Old Man Lu trailed behind them like a shadow. He gave Yi Yin no room to breathe as they descended toward the Yi family estate. In Pingyang County, the gears of fate turned as Patriarch Yugwa watched the grain convoys return. Relief and joy initially flooded the old man's heart. But then the truth of Black Wind Ridge struck how I, as LeFou, bled them for 15 gold. His celebration withered instantly. Yugwa immediately prepared a frantic message for Yi Wangmin. Stationed in the capital Jinggan, the plan was to summon a purging army to erase us. He sought to annihilate the ruthless new predators haunting Blackwind Mountain. Little did he know Wang Min was a mere scholar with zero command over any soldiers. At most, he could only muster a handful of local prefecture guards. Inchun prefects are toothless. Yet you wonder how a lowly magistrate like me built a legion. It was simple. The corrupt nation of Chun had discarded Pingyang like trash after the war. They had essentially left these people and this land for dead. As the last official standing, I seized the granaries to feed the starving survivors myself. By rebuilding their homes and lives, I claimed their loyalty and absolute power. Every blade and coin comes from my own pocket. This entire city belongs to me. My word is law. They certainly wouldn't bow to the pathetic Yi clan. In his study, Yugwa spiraled into madness, shattering his prized treasures in a blind fury. He stood shaking in silence while Yin Rang knelt frozen by the patriarch's rage. Yugwa had already interrogated the broken survivors of the mountain expedition. Without their witness, he would have branded Yi Yin a traitorous dog. He'd have suspected his own blood was plotting. How dare those thieves defy the Yi family? Such insolence! Yin Rang kept his gaze on the floor, his breath hitched in fear. The scheme to plunder the Jiao grain shop had been the patriarch's own dark design. Now the grain was gone and the crushing weight of failure sat squarely on Yugwa's shoulders. Suddenly, a sinister realization flickered in the old man's eyes. He looked up, hissing, "Tell me, Yin, could LeFou be a puppet for the Zhaos?" Yin Rang lowered his head, his mind racing before voicing his darkest concerns. If he serves the Zhaos, then they possess a power far beyond our reach. He slaughtered 300 souls without blinking. He is a true monster. Yet Manager Bai has already surrendered the shop and is fleeing the county forever. Perhaps this new bandit king and the Zhaos aren't allies after all. Yugwa nodded slowly, forced to acknowledge the grim logic of the situation. But he sighed in disbelief. Who would travel 1,000 miles just for a stone bowl? But the carnage was undeniable. Yin Rang wasn't the only witness to that nightmare. Yugwa's nephew Yonggi was there too, a trip meant to temper him through experience. Instead, the boy returned shattered, a trembling shell of his former self. He was a broken mess, babbling incoherently while soaked in his own filth. He babbled about noodles and gold. "Patriarch, what of the 15 gold ingots we owe?" Yin Rang whispered cautiously, knowing LeFou's boldness proved he feared no one. A desperate devil like him is better left unprovoked. We pay to survive. The head of the Yi family made the agonizing choice. Using the name LeFou, I had successfully extorted the Yi clan for 15 gold. A heavy blow to them, but the sheep are always ready for shearing. In Pingyang, the game continues even as the Zhaos vanish into the night. Total control. The Yi clan now holds the entire Pingyang grain market in their iron grip. I don't even need to play the villain anymore, or manipulate the market in secret. The greedy Yi family will skyrocket prices themselves to recover those 15 gold ingots lost to Liu. The commoners will bleed gold to pay back the family's debt. Deep inside the Ye Manor, Golu sat finishing his second cup of tea with growing impatience. Yi and Rome still hadn't returned from reporting to the master. I have strict orders from my lord to follow. As Golu, I must be swift. Even without the gold scouting, this territory is a victory in itself. That lethal grain is already delivered. Once the Ye family feasts, their fate is sealed, only death awaits them. It is only a matter of time before I return to sweep up their rotting corpses. Finally, the debt for their theft will be paid in blood. Golu prepared to slam his cup down. Just as he staged his angry exit, Yin appeared alongside a middle-aged man with a sharp gaze. The man stepped forward. "You must be the legendary hero Sandabao from Leaf Yu Fortress." Family head Yugwa offered a serpent-like smile, but Golu had no time for fake pleasantries. He cut to the chase. Lord Yi, where is the gold promised to our fortress? If you are broke, I am leaving. Golu turned to go, but Yugwa lunged forward to stop the warrior. Hero, wait, the payment is ready. Yugwa signaled with two sharp claps of his hands. A stunning young woman emerged from the shadows, delicately carrying a crimson wooden treasure box. Golu froze, remembering my lessons about sugar-coated bullets. This was not a gift. It was a beautiful, deadly trap. Seeing through their charm offensive, he snatched the box and verified all 15 gold ingots were present and accounted for. With the heavy gold secured, Golu turned to make a quick getaway. But Yugwa blocked him again. Hero, the mountain path is long. Stay a while. A banquet with fine wine was waiting. Yugwa's true scheme: get Golu drunk and bleed him for every secret regarding our fortress. But Golu was a product of my ruthless military drills and absolute iron discipline. He was not about to be swayed by cheap alcohol without a single moment of hesitation. He rejected the invitation and marched straight out the front gates. Yugwa's beauty and wine strategy was designed to break any man's resolve and steal his loyalty. Yet Golu's icy dismissal left the old fox paralyzed in shock. The head of the Ye family stood speechless. These new lords from the Black Wind Mountains were far more dangerous than he ever imagined.